The blizzard swallowed Willow Creek that night. Officer Daniel Cole and his German shepherd Valor were the only ones still out there when the dog froze. Ears up, eyes locked on a faint glow behind a frosted window. Through the glass, a little girl's trembling hand spelled 3 letters, S.O.S. No one else saw it, but that moment would uncover a secret buried for years and remind the world that even in the coldest storm, God still sends miracles, sometimes on 4 paws. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Snow fell in thick, silent sheets over Willow Creek, Colorado, blanketing every rooftop and street lamp in ghostly white. The wind moaned through the pine trees, carrying the scent of cold metal and distant smoke. Officer Daniel Cole drove slowly along the deserted road, his cruiser's headlights cutting tunnels through the storm. At 38, Daniel looked like a man carved from the same granite hills that surrounded the town, tall, broad-shouldered, his jaw rough with a day's growth of beard. There was a steadiness to him that came not from arrogance, but from experience. Years in the force had taught him that calm was the only weapon worth drawing before a gun. His gray-blue eyes, though sharp, held a heaviness, a quiet grief that refused to thaw. 3 winters ago, his wife Emily had died in a car crash on a similar road, leaving him with an emptiness that no shift or case could fill. Beside him, stretched alertly across the passenger seat, lay Valor, a 5-year-old German shepherd with a thick sable coat and eyes the color of warm amber. He was large but not bulky, powerful yet graceful, his every movement precise, like a creature that knew the weight of responsibility. Valor had served with Daniel for 3 years, first in the K-9 Search and Rescue Division and now on local patrol duty. His hind leg carried a faint scar from a rescue mission gone wrong, a small fragment of shrapnel left behind after saving a child trapped in a collapsed cabin. That night, Daniel had promised Valor that if he ever wanted to rest, he would, but the dog never stopped working. Perhaps loyalty, like love, doesn't retire easily. The radio crackled with static, a dispatcher's weary voice cutting through. "Cole, you're clear to finish your route. The storm's grounding half the county. Head back before the ridge ices over." Daniel responded with a low, "Copy that," but his attention wasn't on the radio. He knew these roads too well, the way danger often hid beneath the surface of routine. As the cruiser crawled past Maple Street, Valor suddenly stiffened. The dog's ears pricked, and a low growl rumbled in his chest. Daniel slowed, his instincts sharpening like glass under pressure. "What is it, boy?" The beam from his headlights swept across a row of abandoned houses, each swallowed by the storm's breath. Then Valor's head turned sharply toward one house at the very end of the street, a small, weathered 2-story cabin with peeling green paint and a sagging porch. A faint light flickered behind its frosted window. Daniel parked the cruiser, the engine idling softly. He stepped out, snow crunching under his boots, cold air biting through his uniform. The flashlight beam cut across the yard, footprints half buried in snow, leading nowhere. Then, through the fogged window, he saw it. A small hand pressed against the glass. His breath hitched. Written above it, traced in condensation, were 3 trembling letters, S.O.S. The hand belonged to a girl, no older than 8, her face pale and gaunt, strands of light brown hair plastered against her forehead. Her eyes, wide and glassy, seemed to scream even as her mouth did not. Daniel's pulse quickened. "Jesus," he whispered, lifting his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a possible child in distress at 42 Maple. Request immediate backup." The reply came after a long hiss of static. "All units grounded. Visibility 0. You're on your own, Cole." He lowered the radio slowly, his jaw tightening. Inside, a shadow moved behind the girl, a taller figure, feminine, the outline harsh and deliberate. A curtain yanked shut. The light vanished. Daniel's breath fogged the air. He looked down at Valor. "We're not waiting," he said quietly. The dog gave a single sharp bark in agreement. The front porch creaked beneath his boots. The door was locked, no lights inside, but through a gap in the curtain, he saw a sliver of movement, something struggling, something small. He tried the handle, frozen solid. Daniel circled to the back, scanning for another entrance. The storm was relentless now, snow whipping sideways in blinding sheets. He found a cellar door, its latch rusted, padlocked with chain. From beneath it came a faint whimper. not an animal, a child. "Hang on," he muttered, pulling a pair of pliers from his belt. The cold bit into his gloves as he pried the latch open. The hinge groaned like a scream as it gave way. A wave of stale air rushed out, thick with mold and something sharper, fear. He descended into the dark basement, Valor padding silently behind him, nose to the ground. At the bottom, huddled near an old furnace, was the girl from the window. She was curled into herself, trembling violently, her wrists bound loosely with torn fabric. "Hey," Daniel said softly, kneeling. "It's okay. My name's Daniel. I'm with the police. You're safe now." Her voice was barely a whisper. She said, if I made noise, she'd lock me out in the snow. Daniel's stomach turned. "Who?" he asked. The girl's lips quivered. "Evelyn." From the stairs, a creak. Daniel turned his flashlight upward. A woman stood at the top of the steps, mid-40s, tall and thin, her blonde hair tied back too tightly, her face sharp and hollowed by exhaustion and alcohol. Evelyn Parker wore a housecoat over leggings, a cigarette trembling between her fingers. Her eyes were cold, small, the kind that smiled only when cruelty felt like control. "You have no right being in my home," she slurred. "Your home?" Daniel stood, his tone flat. "You locked a child in a basement during a blizzard." "She's lying!" Evelyn snapped, voice rising. "That brat's been stealing, breaking things, making up stories. She's sick in the head, just like her mother." Valor's growl echoed low and steady, filling the silence between them. Evelyn took a step back. Daniel's flashlight caught the glint of a bruise on her wrist. Not fresh, but old, circular. She wasn't a victim. She was a storm herself. "Step away from the stairs," Daniel warned. "I'm taking the girl." Evelyn hesitated, eyes darting toward a drawer near the kitchen. Daniel followed her glance. "Don't," he said sharply. She froze, trembling, her cigarette ash falling to the floor. The girl whimpered. Valor moved forward, placing himself between Daniel and the child. Daniel guided the girl up the steps, keeping his eyes on Evelyn. "You'll answer for this," he said quietly. "But not tonight." Outside, the wind screamed louder, as if protesting what had just been uncovered. Daniel wrapped his coat around the girl and carried her to the cruiser. She was light, too light. Valor trotted beside them, tail low, eyes flicking back toward the dark house. Inside the car, Daniel turned on the heater. The girl stared out the window, watching the snow swirl around the glass where she had written her silent cry for help. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily Parker." Daniel nodded. "You did good, Lily. You're safe now." But as he looked back toward the house, where the light had vanished completely, a single thought burned through the fog of his breath. If Evelyn Parker had gone that far to hide one child, what else was she hiding? The storm answered with silence. The storm had not eased by morning. Instead, it had turned the streets of Willow Creek into a world of white silence. Every sound seemed smothered by snow. Inside the police station, the heater hummed with a low, steady rhythm, trying and failing to chase away the chill. Officer Daniel Cole sat at his desk, elbows on the wood, hands clasped in front of his mouth. His eyes, ringed with fatigue, stared at the small girl wrapped in a gray blanket across the room. Lily Parker sat on a bench near the radiator, her knees drawn up to her chest. Her hair, light brown and tangled, stuck to her cheeks. Her face was pale, her lips cracked. She held a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear, clutching it like it could keep the world from breaking again. She looked too fragile to belong anywhere dangerous, yet everything about her, from the stiffness of her shoulders to the flinch each time the wind rattled the windows, said she had lived with fear long enough for it to become her shadow. Officer Megan Rhodes entered the room carrying 2 paper cups of hot cocoa. She was in her early 30s, tall and lean, with sharp green eyes that could be both comforting and intimidating, depending on who stood before her. A single braid of chestnut hair fell over her shoulder. She had joined the force 5 years earlier, transferring from Denver after losing her younger sister to domestic violence. Since then, Megan had developed an instinct for spotting the kind of pain that hides behind silence. She set a cup on the table in front of Lily, her voice soft but direct. "Drink slowly, sweetheart. It'll help warm you up." Lily stared at the cup like it was something she had to earn before touching. When she finally took a sip, her hands trembled, but she didn't spill. Daniel watched her carefully. He had seen victims before, but rarely this young, rarely this quiet. She said the woman's name was Evelyn Parker, Daniel told Megan, his voice low. Claims to be her stepmother. The house had locks on the inside of every door. The basement window was nailed shut. Megan frowned. And the father? Long-haul trucker, Thomas Parker, out of state most of the month, dispatches trying to reach him. Daniel rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of the night settle behind his eyes. Evelyn claimed the girl was lying. She was drunk, but too calm for someone caught in the act. Megan looked over at Lily, who had pulled the blanket tighter around herself. That calm usually means she's done it before, she murmured. Valor, lying by the doorway, lifted his head at the mention of Evelyn's name. His ears twitched, and he gave a low whine as if echoing their unease. Daniel reached down to pat his neck. You did good last night, partner, he said. The dog pressed against his leg in quiet acknowledgement. The door opened, letting in a gust of freezing air. Marjorie Lang from Child Protective Services stepped in, brushing snow from her coat. She was in her 50s, round-faced, with silver hair tied in a bun, and the kind of patience that comes from decades of dealing with broken families. Her blue scarf was embroidered with tiny white birds, the only color in the gray room. Morning, she said briskly. I came as soon as I could. This weather's something else. Daniel nodded toward Lily. She's the one who sent the S.O.S. Marjorie's expression softened as she approached the girl. Hello there, Lily. My name's Marjorie. I'm here to make sure you're safe, okay? Her voice carried warmth, the kind that made people believe her even before she explained why. She crouched to meet Lily's gaze. You did something very brave last night. Lily's eyes flicked to Daniel, then back to Marjorie. She said no one would believe me, she whispered. Marjorie shook her head gently. She was wrong. She glanced at Daniel. We'll get photos of those bruises. Medical checkup, full report. If what the girl's saying is true, this isn't just neglect, it's abuse. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. I'm already certain of it. Hours passed in the quiet rhythm of paperwork and interviews. Outside, the snow continued falling, thick and relentless. Inside, the air filled with the faint scent of coffee and wet wool. As the morning wore on, Lily began to speak more. Broken pieces of sentences, fragments of memory, each word heavy with things she couldn't yet say aloud. She locks me in when she drinks, Lily said softly. Sometimes she forgets I'm there. I don't make noise anymore. Daniel clenched his fists beneath the desk. What about your dad? Dad's gone a lot. He used to call, then he stopped. She said I made him leave. Her voice cracked. I tried to be good. Megan's eyes shimmered for a moment before she looked away. You didn't make anyone leave, Lily. That's not your fault. Marjorie finished her notes and sighed. We'll place her in temporary care for now. But given her condition, I'd prefer she stay somewhere she feels safe, at least until we can find her father. Daniel hesitated. His small cabin outside town wasn't much. 2 rooms, 1 bed, a fireplace. But it was warm, and Valor was gentle with children. She can stay with me tonight, he said finally. I'll take responsibility. Megan raised an eyebrow. You sure, Cole? You haven't taken anyone in since... Her words trailed off, but they both knew the end of that sentence, since Emily died. Daniel met her gaze, steady. I'm sure. Marjorie nodded. All right, I'll file it as emergency protective placement. We'll review in 72 hours. That evening, as Daniel drove through the falling snow, the cruiser's heater hummed softly. Lily sat in the back seat, Valor beside her. She watched the world pass by through the frosted glass, streetlights glowing like lanterns in fog. Will she come after me? She asked quietly. Daniel glanced at her through the mirror. Not tonight. You're safe with us. Do you believe me? She asked, almost too softly to hear. He nodded. I do. For the first time, her lips curved slightly, an almost smile, small and uncertain, but real. Valor, sensing it, laid his head on her lap. She stroked his fur absent-mindedly, her breathing slowing. When they reached the cabin, Daniel helped her inside. The fire crackled softly, filling the space with amber light. Lily looked around at the wooden walls, the framed photo of a smiling woman on the mantel. "Who's that?" she asked. Daniel's eyes followed hers. "That was my wife, Emily. She looks kind." "She was," he said quietly. Lily nodded, then turned toward the fire, her small hands outstretched toward its warmth. "Thank you for hearing me," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "You're the one who asked for help. I just happened to be nearby." Outside, the storm roared against the windows, but inside, for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt the sound of peace. Yet as he sat there watching Lily drift toward sleep, a thought whispered through his mind like wind under the door. Something about Evelyn's eyes when he left the house, that flicker of calculation. He looked out through the frosted glass. In the distance, across the snow-covered ridge, a faint light glowed in the direction of Maple Street, too steady, too deliberate. Someone was still awake. The following afternoon dawned pale and brittle. The storm had passed, leaving behind a stillness that felt uneasy, like the town itself was holding its breath. The snow lay in clean, unbroken sheets across Willow Creek, but Daniel Cole knew better than to mistake silence for safety. He stood by the window of his cabin, coffee in hand, watching Lily and Valor outside. The little girl wore one of his old flannel shirts that hung like a dress on her small frame. She was helping Valor dig through the snow for a stick, her laughter faint but real, an unfamiliar sound in his house. It stirred something inside him, something long buried beneath duty and loss. For a moment, Daniel allowed himself to imagine this peace was permanent, but the light he had seen the night before from the direction of Maple Street still haunted his thoughts. That kind of glow wasn't from a candle or reflection. It was steady, purposeful. Someone had been there. He took another sip of coffee, trying to quiet the unease. His phone buzzed on the table. It was Officer Megan Rhodes. "We got something," she said when he answered. "Forensics went through the Parker place this morning. There's blood on the basement wall, not the girl's. It's older, and Daniel, we found something else." "What is it?" "An old camera. The kind with tapes. There's one still inside." Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Before leaving, he knelt beside Lily, who was now sitting on the porch steps with Valor's head in her lap. Her eyes followed him, wary but trusting. "I need to go check something," he said. "Marjorie's on her way to stay with you for a bit. You'll be all right?" Lily nodded. "You'll come back?" "I promise." She smiled faintly, and that single expression made the promise feel like a vow. The Parker house looked even colder in daylight. The snow glittered on its roof, disguising the rot beneath. Megan stood near the police tape, her gloved hands buried in her pockets. She greeted Daniel with a grim nod. "This place feels wrong," she said quietly. Inside, the air was heavy with mildew and silence. The basement smelled of rust and damp wood. Megan led him to a table where the evidence sat, a small, handheld camcorder, its surface dusty but intact. "We haven't reviewed the tape yet," she said. "I thought you'd want to see it first." Daniel connected the device to a portable screen. The video flickered to life, grainy footage, time-stamped nearly 2 years ago. A woman's voice filled the room, brittle and sharp. "Evelyn's. Stop crying. She's gone. Do you understand me? She's not coming back." The camera shifted, capturing a young woman at the edge of the frame, dark hair, kind eyes, and a gentle smile. Daniel's stomach dropped. He recognized her. "Emily," he whispered, his late wife. Megan turned to him sharply. "Wait, what?" Daniel's throat went dry. "That's my wife, Emily Cole. She used to volunteer at the town shelter before she died. She worked with families in crisis. Evelyn must have been one of her cases." The tape crackled again. Emily's voice this time, calm but firm. "You can't keep doing this, Evelyn. The child needs safety, not fear." Evelyn's reply was a hiss of rage. "Don't tell me how to raise my family. You think you're perfect? You don't know what it's like." The camera jerked, fell, and the image fractured into static. Daniel's pulse hammered. His mind reeled. Emily had visited this house, had known Evelyn, and never told him. Why? Megan studied him carefully. "Daniel, we can't jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just doing outreach." He nodded, though doubt burned behind his eyes. Or maybe she found something she wasn't supposed to. They sent the tape to evidence for restoration, but Daniel couldn't shake the image of Emily's face, the compassion, the calm resolve, and how Evelyn's voice had cracked with something more than anger. It was fear. By the time Daniel returned home, twilight had already begun to fall. The air shimmered with ice crystals. Marjorie Lang was sitting by the fire, knitting a scarf while Lily read a children's book aloud to Valor, who lay sprawled on the rug, tail thumping lazily each time Lily turned a page. The domestic warmth of the scene hit Daniel like a knife, too beautiful to last. Marjorie looked up. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," he muttered. He told her about the tape. Marjorie's needles paused mid-stitch. "If Emily was involved, this could go deeper than we thought." "I need to know what she found," Daniel said quietly. "What she was trying to stop." Marjorie nodded. "Just be careful, Daniel. Some truths don't want to be found." Lily closed the book and looked at him, her voice small. "Was she your wife? The lady in the picture?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, she helped people. Like you." Lily's eyes softened. "Then maybe she helped my mom too." The words hit Daniel like a blow. "Your mom?" "She used to go to the shelter before she was gone." Lily's fingers twisted the fabric of her blanket. "Evelyn said she ran away, but I don't think she did." Daniel's heart went cold. "Lily, do you remember your mom's name?" "Anna," the girl whispered. "Anna Parker." He felt his breath catch. Emily's last outreach report. He remembered the file now. Anna Parker. Possible domestic abuse referred to CPS, but no follow-up. Everything connected like pieces of shattered glass finally fitting together. Emily had tried to protect Anna. Anna vanished. Now her daughter had written SOS on a window from the same house. Outside, the wind began to rise again, brushing against the window pane like fingers. Daniel stared into the fire, the reflection dancing. In his eyes, somewhere beyond the snow, the truth waited, buried but not dead. And if Emily had died trying to uncover it, he was ready to finish what she started. The next morning, frost rimed every branch like crystal lace. Daniel Cole parked his cruiser outside the Willow Creek Police Department, his thoughts a tangle of questions that refused to settle. The tape from the Parker house had changed everything. Emily, his late wife, had somehow been connected to Evelyn and Anna Parker before both women vanished from the official records. It wasn't coincidence. It was unfinished business. Inside the station, Officer Megan Rhodes stood beside a corkboard covered in photos, timelines, and reports. She looked tired, her braid looser than usual, eyes shadowed from too many sleepless nights. "We ran a forensic check on the blood in the basement," she said, handing him a folder. "It's female, not Evelyn's, not Lily's, still waiting on a full match." Daniel flipped through the pages. "Anna Parker," he murmured. "It has to be." Megan nodded grimly. "There's more. The camera wasn't the only thing hidden down there. We found a false wall behind the furnace. Inside, old letters, invoices, and a key." "What kind of key?" She held up a small metal tag, tarnished but legible. "Storage Unit 17B, Willow Creek Industrial Lot." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Let's go." They reached the lot an hour later. The air there smelled of oil and rust, the place nearly deserted except for the occasional truck thundering past the highway beyond. The storage unit stood in 2 long rows of corrugated steel, snow piled along the sides. A man in a faded green parka emerged from the office when they approached. He was tall, lean, with a salt and pepper beard and a noticeable limp. His name tag read, Howard Brinks, the caretaker. His handshake was firm, his gaze sharp with suspicion, honed by years of dealing with people who wanted to hide things. 17B, he repeated, squinting at the tag. "Rented under Evelyn Parker, haven't seen her in months, always paid in cash." He led them down the icy row until they reached a red door flecked with rust. "You got a warrant?" Megan showed him the document. Howard grunted approval and stepped aside. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and the faint scent of rot. Old furniture, boxes of clothing, children's toys, and stacks of yellowed papers filled the small space. A broken mirror leaned against the wall, reflecting fractured pieces of light. Daniel's flashlight caught something metallic beneath a tarp, a locked trunk. "Bingo," Megan said. She knelt beside it, examining the latch. Same key? Daniel inserted the small metal tag. It clicked open easily, almost too easily. The smell that escaped was sharp, chemical, formalin, and decay. Inside were photo envelopes, medical records, and a small box labeled Anna P. Daniel picked it up, his hand steady though his pulse raced. Inside lay a pendant, tarnished silver with the engraving for Lily. His throat tightened. Underneath was a stack of papers, Emily's handwriting, notes from counseling sessions, dates, addresses, and one line underlined 3 times, EP unstable, keep distance, possible threat. Megan's face hardened. Emily knew she was dangerous. Daniel nodded slowly. And she tried to protect Anna. That's why she went to that house. Howard cleared his throat. You folks might want to see this. He held up a recent logbook. 2 nights ago, someone else came asking about this unit. Woman. Said she was family. Daniel's blood ran cold. What did she look like? Blonde, about 45, drove a dark sedan. Megan swore under her breath. Evelyn. They rushed outside, scanning the snowy road. Tire marks trailed away from the lot, leading toward the old bridge over Willow Creek. Daniel felt Valor tense beside him, hackles raised. The dog's ears pricked, nose lifted toward the wind. He's got something, Daniel said, already following. The bridge loomed ahead, half covered in ice. At the edge stood a car, Evelyn's, its engine idling, exhaust fogging the air. Daniel approached cautiously, his hand hovering near his holster. The driver's door hung open. Inside, the glove compartment was stuffed with documents, maps, and an envelope addressed to Thomas Parker. She was running, Megan said. Valor barked sharply, pulling toward the tree line. Tracks in the snow, 2 sets of footprints led away from the car. They followed, weaving between frozen pines until they reached a clearing. There, half buried under snow and leaves, was a mound of earth marked by a crude wooden cross. Daniel's breath caught. He knelt, brushing snow away. Something glinted, a locket. He opened it. Inside was a photo of Anna Parker holding baby Lily, his jaw clenched. She didn't run away, he said softly. Evelyn buried her here. Megan swallowed hard, stepping back. We'll need the coroner, crime scene team. But Daniel wasn't listening. Valor was growling again, low and warning. A sound cracked behind them, a twig breaking underfoot. Daniel turned. Evelyn stood there, pale and furious, a revolver shaking in her gloved hand. Her mascara had run, her hair wild in the wind. You shouldn't have come here, Cole, she hissed. None of this was supposed to be your problem. Daniel's voice stayed calm. It became my problem the moment you locked that child in your basement. Her hand trembled. You don't understand. Anna wanted to take Lily away from me. She was going to ruin everything. Emily, she threatened me too. They made me do this. Snow swirled around them like ash. You killed them both, Daniel said quietly. Evelyn's breath came ragged. I saved Lily from them. From lies. From pity. Valor lunged before she could aim. The gun fired once, echoing through the forest. Evelyn fell backward, the weapon skidding across the snow. Daniel moved fast, kicking it away, his breath heavy in the cold air. She stared up at him, eyes glassy with something that wasn't quite madness, something closer to emptiness. You can't save her, she whispered. She's mine. No, Daniel said, voice like stone. She's free. The sirens began to wail in the distance. The sun broke over Willow Creek 2 days later, pale and hesitant, as if unsure it was welcome after so much darkness. The snow that had buried the town began to soften, dripping from rooftops like tears that had finally been allowed to fall. Outside the police station, a small crowd gathered quietly, not for gossip, but gratitude. Word of what had happened spread faster than the wind ever could. The little girl rescued, the truth uncovered, the storm finally over. Inside, Officer Daniel Cole sat by his desk, the case files spread before him like ghosts of a story that had finally told itself. Evelyn Parker was in custody, charged with 2 counts of homicide and child endangerment. The evidence from the storage unit, the locket, the letters, and Emily's final notes had sealed her fate. Yet Daniel found no joy in it. Justice didn't bring back the dead. It only promised the living a chance to heal. The door creaked open. Marjorie Lang entered, her blue scarf bright against the gray of the morning. She carried a folder under one arm and the faintest smile on her weathered face. The court signed the papers, she said softly. Lily's temporary guardianship has been approved under your care. CPS recommends long-term placement once she's stable. Daniel exhaled, a weight lifting from his chest. Thank you. She's outside, Marjorie added. Said she wanted to see the snow melt. He found Lily sitting on the station steps, Valor beside her. The dog, now cleaned, his sable coat gleaming in the sunlight, rested his head in her lap while she traced shapes in the melting frost. She looked different already. The hollowness in her eyes had begun to fade, replaced by something fragile but alive. You okay, kiddo? Daniel asked, sitting beside her. She nodded slowly. The snow's not so scary when the sun comes out. Daniel smiled faintly. No, it's not. It just hides things until we're ready to see them. Lily turned to him. Will she, Evelyn, go away forever? His gaze drifted toward the horizon. The court will make sure you're safe. That's what matters now. She seemed to think about that for a moment, then said quietly, Mom would have liked you. Daniel's throat tightened. I think I would have liked her too. They sat in silence as Valor lifted his head, sniffing the air. The first cardinal of the season perched on a nearby branch, its red feathers burning bright against the white. Lily smiled and pointed. It's like a fire in the snow. Emily used to say the same thing, Daniel murmured. That light always finds a way through the cold. Later that afternoon, the town gathered at the small chapel on Birch Hill. The grave of Anna Parker was freshly marked, her name carved clean into the stone. Daniel stood beside Lily as she placed the silver pendant, her mother's gift, at the base. She whispered something too soft for him to hear, but he saw her shoulders ease as she stepped back, her small hand finding his. As they walked away, Megan Rhodes joined them, her usual sharpness tempered by relief. You did good, Cole, she said. Emily would have been proud. Daniel nodded, his eyes glistening. She taught me that some rescues don't end with sirens. They start with listening. That night, back at his cabin, the fire crackled softly. Lily slept on the couch, Valor curled protectively at her feet. Daniel stood by the window, looking out at the same frosted pane where he had once seen only darkness. Now, through the glass, he saw reflection instead, of a man no longer haunted and of a light that had returned to his home. He whispered, almost to the wind, You did it, Em. She's safe. The snow outside shimmered beneath the moonlight, and for the first time in years, Daniel believed that forgiveness, like dawn, always comes quietly, one ray at a time. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, beneath the snow and sorrow, something divine unfolded, not a miracle of thunder or light, but of love. A man who had lost everything found purpose again. A child who had been forgotten found safety. And through the loyalty of one faithful German shepherd, hearts once frozen by pain learned to trust again. Sometimes, God doesn't part the seas or send angels with wings. Sometimes, his miracles arrive quietly, in the form of kindness, courage, or the simple act of showing up when someone needs help the most. Just like Daniel, Lily, and Valor, we are all called to be lights in someone's winter. So tonight, wherever you are, take a moment to thank God for the unseen blessings around you, the friend who listens, the stranger who smiles, the small mercies that carry you through hard days. Because every gentle act of love is proof that he is still here, working through ordinary people to do extraordinary things. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need hope today. Leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe that no child, no soul, and no animal should ever be left in the cold, subscribe and stay with us for more stories of grace, faith, and second chances. May God bless you, your family, and every small light you send into this world.